This is the second time Soroti Regional Referral Hospital is appearing before PAC Committee. The first time they were sent back because their final account was skewed. The committee could not understand what was there in their final accounts. So they were sent back to go and respond to some of the issues that were raised. And we hope they have been able to go through and they're ready now to present the issues of concern that were raised the other time. However, let me say that there were some issues also within the audit reports which were never discussed. So we'll see whether we'll be able to tackle some of the issues as well. But more precisely, what we are going to do now is to request our lead counsel to go through some of the issues that were raised in the first meeting, and we will hear your responses. And if we still have time, we should be able to look at the pending issues in the audit queries. And then we call it a day. Feel free. The other time we had a lot of discussion. We hope you are going to be able to cooperate with us until we finalize this. We are hoping also that today we are going to finish your accounts completely. We do not want you to come back, continue coming back here to and fro to Parliament. So I'd like to request the lead counsel to take charge and guide us, and then we allow the accounting officer to be able to respond. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairperson. Like you have guided, I think we are going to ask the accounting officer to take us through the issues that were raised last time for them to clarify on that were relating to their final accounts that did not meet the expectation of the committee. I believe the accounting officers are aware, and without wasting time, we think there were about 9 or 10 issues raised which you are supposed to respond to. I would wish Mr. Chairperson through you to ask the accounting officers to start straight away with the issues of collection and remittance of non-tax revenue. That was not very clear in their statement, what was collected, what was remitted, and the balance. So accounting officer, we think you take us through that with evidence that that is there. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson.
Thank you.
I think I would, if members have got the copies of that Auditor General's report and also the responses by the Soroti Regional Referral Hospital. We shall use
this blue document here, blue covered document, FDC color.
Beautiful color. So, Chairperson, I think that color is natural color.
Okay.
Accounting officer.
Although James would have disputed that.
Yeah.
Well, this one. Yeah.
Yes, accounting officer.
Thank you very much, Chair. Once again, I want to thank the committee for inviting us this time round, and hopefully we should be able to answer all the queries. When you came to Soroti, we were very prepared to receive you. Unfortunately, you didn't get time to reach Soroti, but we've made quite a lot of improvements in the hospital. We've also made improvements on the final accounts. On the issue of collection and remittance of NTR, last time it wasn't very clear, but this time round we've been able to get 3 appendices. We do have an appendix A1. We also have appendix A2 and appendix B that give evidence to the statement that is written here. On page 1, okay, not really page 1, but page 2 of the blue book, It's the first issue, and I want to call upon Frederick, the accountant, to take us through that section. Frederick, please. Through Chair.
Thank you, Accounting Officer. I think I'm going to lead the committee by looking at both the copy of the financial statements and the copy of the clarifications. On page 7 of the financial statements is the statement of performance, where the non-tax revenue is reported. In financial performance, we reported that we had a non-tax revenue of 29,727,029, while the actual collection, as per the clarification, was 31,518,154. Now, an amount of 1,806,154 was part of the 31 million collected, but had been remitted to the Uganda Consolidated Fund by 29th of by 29th of June. So by end of June 30th, the amount of 1 million had not yet hit the consolidated fund. It was cash in transit. And so this amount could not be recognized in the system as part of money collection, but it remained as cash in transit. So, meaning that in the accounting system, we only had 29. That is what is in the reported in the statement of performance. And an amount of 1.8 is supported by a general receipt, which came out after the end of the financial year, June. This acknowledgement receipt is dated 28th August 2018, a date after 30th June 2018. So this is receipt accounts for 1.8.
No, some clarification. This we are talking about appendix
A1.
A1?
Yes, please.
Not A2?
A1.
But what does A2 say?
A2 is a bank form that gives the details of the transfer of the 1.8. It is an electronic transfer form which transferred this money.
So when was this deposited?
This money was deposited on the 29th of June 2018, and this date is indicated on the transfer form on A2. A2, appendix A2.
So you got the receipt from the treasury before the money was transferred?
After.
But this one is August.
Yes, please.
But this one is June.
What we are saying is that by 30th June, the 1.8 had not hit the consolidated fund, so finance could not read it on the account.
Okay.
So it remained in transit until after the end of the financial year.
Okay.
Chairperson, I hope members are following the dates in the documents that have been attached as appendices. I see A1 having the date of 2nd July. And A2, 29th of July. Of June.
Of June.
Chair.
So that means that this was the date the money was
Deposited or
deposited,
transferred
the
to.
9th June.
Yes,
But
please.
when was the audit done?
The audit was done after 29th
So
June.
by the time of audit, this was not yet recognized.
Yes, because what happens is that the financial year closes at 30th June. And at that time, whatever would not have been transferred to the UCF, Uganda Consolidated Fund,
Considered as being
is
with you.
considered, yes, as being with us, yeah. And so when the audit took place, it took place definitely after 30th June. But still, the amount of money which did not hit the consolidated fund but still remained out of the consolidated fund. And the accounting system picks all that has been transacted from the consolidated fund. And so this is what appears in the financial statements. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe I need to get clarification on this new term in accounts called cash in transit. Because by the time money is deposited on a certain account, that money is reflected either in the system, and even the cash in transit is also reflected by the accountant. Now, these people to keep telling us that a certain amount was still in a transit. I think by the time of the audit, that amount was also reflected by the accountant, I think. Now, why didn't you avail it to the Auditor General? And again, how long is it supposed to take to reach to its destination? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
You take note. I think accounting officer take note of our concern, the issues of this thing of cash in transit. How is it treated in that? I think maybe you'll also guide and see one of the things.
Chairman.
What is it all about?
You see, that money should have been reported as cash equivalents in the account. In the cash and cash equivalents in the accounts. Like yesterday's case, you remember, when they said they had the money carried forward, not yet remitted to. So it's carried forward to the next. Now, when I look at his cash and cash equivalents, he had 10 million in his audited accounts. But when you take him to note 18, which is a breakdown from your financial statement, a breakdown of that 10 million he reports, I was trying to locate the 1.8. You have your accounts with you?
Yes, please.
Just go to page 23. Page 23 of your,
Yes, I'm there.
you see note 18?
Yes, please.
That note 18 should account for the 1.8 as an item of its own. And it's not there.
There is cash in transit here.
There is even a cash in transit is zero.
Which is zero.
So you know when you are making these financials, all that was not transferred to the comes back on your account as cash and or equivalents that are forwarded to the next financial. So by you not indicating it anywhere here, even in your note of explanation, again leaves it hanging. It's little money, but the idea of this accountability committee is to ascertain the authenticity of your statement. So even when it is short by a shilling, there is a challenge.
As accounting officer, can you respond to both issues that have been raised? Honorable Catherine and then Honorable.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I do appreciate that page 23 ideally should have had the 1.8. Maybe it was an error of omission, but since it's quite clear from Appendix A1 and Appendix A2 that the money was transferred on a Thursday. Actually, it was a Thursday afternoon, so it was reflected on Monday, which was already July. So maybe we request that next time we do the accounts properly, especially when it comes to cash in transit.
So, Honorable Catherine, I think you have got the issue of the cash in transit. Should have been captured in the cash and cash equivalent template. But now they have not even recognized, they have not treated it completely in their final accounts.
Honorable Chair, my concern here is that when money is moving, it has a starting step. It cannot just automatically find itself in the system. And now I think the Auditor General started with that very first step. Why didn't you avail it to the Auditor General with a receipt that this is the money that has so far gone to that what you have termed the transit? That is what I wanted to know. Because NTR means that you are collecting money yourself, meaning that you are the first person to be handling it. And the Auditor General deals with you personally. That is what I wanted to know from you, Mr. Accountant.
Thank you, Madam. Honorable. At the time of audit, definitely these documents were available, and this receipt was available, and the Auditor General looked at it. The issue here is that for purposes of reporting, the actual collection as is received in the bank is relates to actually the what has been actually transpired and what the accounting system has already recognized. This 1.8, there's something I'm forgetting here, but the general ledger reconciliation was bringing out this fact properly.
Sure.
Because when we looked at the time we were reconciling this account in I'm not seeing this. There's a statement in the accounts, an attachment to the financial statements at the back as a general ledger reconciliation detailed report. It's a general ledger reconciliation detailed report, and in this general ledger reconciliation report, I don't know whether I can do my mathematics properly. There's an amount in the general ledger of cash balance. There's a document at the back of the financial statement.
Which page?
It's not really paged. It's not really paged.
Yeah, I think this is important because we wanted to know where the 1.8 went. The collection talks about 31. You recognize 29. Now 1.8 is where we want to see in your accounts. Where did you put it? Just those accounting issues. Otherwise, the evidence of remitting is there. The evidence of receipt by finance is there. But you see, we are concerned with how you handle your accounts. Somebody sleeps on duty when he's supposed to work. He leaves things. When it comes to Parliament, we recognize this is not correct together with the Auditor General. So we would want you to get to that so that tomorrow you understand that everything is important. So can you share us that ledger so that we know it is also in your accounts, your books of accounts, so that we know, okay, that was handled.
Okay.
Otherwise, this is hanging.
Now, Honorable, the fact that this amount of money was receipted in the new financial year, it therefore means that this amount increases the collections for the following year. Yes, it increases the collection for the following year. And so it means it is accounted for as a collection for the following year.
Now this is where this is where now we need to come and help us, because you see, now we have entered the new financial year and we are using the documents to account for the previous financial year. How does it work?
Mr. Chairman, you know, at times I wonder why one can't concede, and because even that general ledger reconciliation report does not indicate that amount. It actually indicates more. It is there. It is indicating 2.3 million. Our interest is 1.8. You see, even when you make references to appendices, and they are also erroneous. This matter, by the way, was an effort of the committee. It did not arise anywhere in as far as the Auditor General is concerned. So even the Auditor General is the staff of Parliament. He conducts audits. But when we come here, we look at these issues independently. So this issue was raised, and the requirement was for you to account for this money. Yes, you are showing receipts that you expended it later. But people wanted to know, how did you capture it in your, if I make reference to your trial balance, if I make reference to your reconciliation ledger, it is not there. Your audited accounts, your cash and cash equivalents is not there. So you just concede and pray that the committee accepts your evidence that actually it was received and remitted like the attachments that you made. But don't struggle to, because...
Chair, I think I would do, it's proper to take that advice, but we made efforts to bank the collections in its right account.
Honorable Chair, before he concedes, he needs to tell us why he had to do this. Was it just to dupe the committee, thinking that these people don't know? We don't know what we are doing. Before you concede, you have to admit the mistake or what you intended to do.
Honorable Member, there was no ill intention in this. Only that the accounting system that we use will only recognize the money that you've remitted to the consolidated, which has actually landed into the consolidated fund. Even if we transfer the money today and the treasurer has not seen it in the consolidated fund, it will not account for it in the accounting system. It will wait until when that money hits the consolidated fund that it is able to identify that this remittance has actually hit the consolidated fund, and then it will get its details too.
Aren't you even complicating it? Somewhere there is 2.3. Somewhere again you are showing 1.8. Which one is which?
And there is somewhere 1.3 also.
There is also 1.3.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I think this is going to delay us for nothing. It is very clear that after making that transfer of 1.8, you needed to have recognized it, how the money is moving, like you are being told by Honorable Tusime, but still you are insisting accounting system have got no problem with you failing to treat your transaction and movement of cash or money in your account to say this amount, 1.8 was. Even after the financial year, records will still capture it and can be traced and followed, which is the problem now. So what are you trying to explain?
I rest my case, Honorable Member.
So we just know somebody is sleeping on duty to make accounts very complicated to cause problems for everyone. So I think, Mr. Chair, that is very clear. We now know what to do with it. I would wish we move to the next.
So we stay this audit query. Members?
Mr. Chairman, has just one consequence under this act. You see, you have made an endeavor to indicate that you remitted it, the consolidated fund, and we thank you for that. However, the concern of the accountability committee is when did it come? When did you earn this revenue? Why didn't it go within the time it was supposed to be remitted to? And the charge is very clear. So you know you could receive funds and remit them later, but when you have made fair use of them to generate you interest and other things, regardless of the amount under consideration. So it's an offense under this act that when revenues of NTR come, they have to hit no one, by the way. You can only get an exemption under Section 44 from the Minister of Finance. So you concede knowing that this charge is due to you for not remitting money timely to the consolidated fund.
Honorable Chair.
Yes, Honorable.
I used to hear that in accounts there are errors which are intentional. I think I've landed on one. Yes, I used to hear. I don't want to say that I'm a qualified accountant like he is. I will still bend low, but I want to inform him that this is error which he did intentionally, and we need not to keep on this, on intentional errors. With intentional errors, you have to bring back the money, then we go. Thank you.
I think that is clear. The position what would take action on as per Public Finance and Management Act, the responsibility of accounting officer is clear. Keeping that money, first of all, the problem, transferring it late. So if you had it, why didn't you? So those are issues now that you shall handle. So I would wish, Chair, we move to the...
Yeah, but before we move, honorable members, before you come in, honorable members, I perhaps maybe we need to work on this as a team. I've been having a lot of problems with these accounting officers. And in my view, sometimes we may wish to refer them to further investigations. But you see, almost the entire system is like that. All the accounting officers. Are we arresting all the accounting officers? To be honest, you see, each time you go from one entity to another one, the same mistake. Lies, falsification of accounting. They are trying to cover up. And they are not helping the accounting officer, especially the accountants. Because normally when accounting officers are appointed, they may not necessarily have all the technical knowledge on how these accounting books and whatever are entered are treated. They may not necessarily have. But they are accounting officers. Now you do a transaction which is supposed to be done within your jurisdiction, is not done. And then whom do we roast? The accounting officer. And the accountant is there, who has caused all these problems. So I don't know, because you see, it's really serious. Almost the entire, since we started the meeting the other time, you find almost most of these accounts is skewed. Yesterday the same thing. The other day Gulu. The other day Bara Unified Hospital. Same. Now Soroti. Falsification. They want to cover. They don't tell you the truth. They bring forged documents. They try to, maneuver things instead of accepting that there is a problem here. That is what we want to hear as a committee. There is a problem. There is a problem. So I don't know if we refer this team again to. we should discuss this as a parliament and get maybe a cell where we can detain these people somewhere. I don't know. Yes, Honorable Rosemary. Before Fred, then Fred, it will come to you. Let Honorable Rosemary, then Rosemary. Rosemary, put on your microphone, Honorable.
The village. Mr. Chairman, I've listened and I'm disturbed by the 1.8 million, which they have told us is cash in transit, which they did not remit. Mr. Chairman, whereas it may look a very insignificant figure, because they had collected 31 million, but now they sat on the 1 million. I just would like to find out what caused the delay in remitting the 1.8 billion. Because, Mr. Chairman, I remember one time one of my lecturers, I'm not an accountant, but there was a course unit I did related to this managerial finance. So they were telling us, when you have debtors, and that is now receivables, there are some of them who they are bad. They don't clear their debts on time. But you should have mechanisms of ensuring that they pay you as per their agreed time. And so you have to mobilize them, you have to remind them and all that. Now, I just would now like to understand what caused the delay of the 1.8, because you made an effort to ensure that 39 million was there. Or somebody deliberately looked at it and said, this is, after all, a smaller figure. At least we have given out the bigger part. What caused the delay of this 1.8?
Yes, you take the one of Honorable Fred, then you respond.
Honorable Chair, thank you. It's very clear that this people have failed to explain this 1.8, where it started from and where it ended. They have not answered the Honorable Catherine. That was the first question she asked. And it's also clear that there was some false question somewhere. Some figures read 2.3, others read 1.3, others 1.8. So I would suggest, instead of them laboring to answer what they can't answer, let there be recovery. I thank you.
What about you?
Honorable Chair,
Is Honorable Catherine?
although we are trying to squeeze juice out of stone, we need the accountant or accountant general to tell us the truth, because we are also human. We understand what happened, maybe. We only need him to agree. Then we go on. Because it is clearly, even it is showing on your face, that you cannot explain this further. We appreciate.
Yes, accounting officer, can you respond to the issues raised?
Chair, let me remind the accounting officer. Now, the basis of this whole thing was actually a subject of under declaration of revenue. In your cash flow statement, you stated the non-tax revenue that you received being 29 million. In your statement of appropriation, you indicated the actual revenue received was 29 million. In your non-tax revenue, note 7, the breakdown of the non-tax revenue, you still indicated that you received 29 million as administrative fees and licenses. Now, on further scrutiny of the committee, they realized that you actually had received 31 million. So in all the documentation, there was no indication anywhere that you had received 31 million. So the question that came to you to go and prepare was why you had understated revenue received and what you did with the excess revenue. Now, the effort you made today, which I applaud you, was to indicate that excess revenue was actually eventually remitted to the consolidated fund. But what members are struggling with, like she had asked, was why was there an under declaration? Are we together?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the basis of this matter. So the Auditor General could not have sought for this receipt. The Auditor General only was concerned with the 29 that you declared. So this 1.8, you could not have dreamt that it was there because in your records you did not indicate it at all.
And then, Honorable Tusime, even the 1.8, which they claim was in transit and received in the bank on the 29th of June 2018, now we are not very sure whether there is no collusion between them and the bank, just to backdate the stamp. You see, we are not very sure. Because this can happen. They said, okay, now why don't you just backdate this? This was a transfer that was supposed to have gone far much, earlier than this time. So you backdate it and then you stamp 29th of June. Because now if it's received by the Treasury in July, this is like almost 2-3 days, which is okay. I mean, 2-3 days in Treasury is okay. But the issue is, now how do you treat even this accountability that was done in the other financial year? You see? So these are issues that we are grappling with. And then the authenticity of your information, which is now doubtful.
Clarification.
And even, by the way, when you look at the
clarifications here.
When you look at the cash flow, which I think you have done it here. There is only 20. Is it 20 million remitted? No, it's 20.
Now the negative 20.
Negative 20 was less 11.
Yes. So which they are indicating up there. Let's go through it properly so they can understand.
Yes.
You have your cash flow statement?
Yes.
It is 29. Now you go to page 11.
Page 11.
Page 11, you look at the actual. Initially they had a budget of 45. But the actual collected was 29. You look at NTR up there. You see? 29. Now you go to page 20.
Page 20, yes.
Page 20, you'll see note 7 of non-tax revenue. It shows you the total non-tax revenue is 29. So they were consistent with the declaration of 29 million, even in their audited accounts, in their statement of appropriation, and in their note. However, the committee established that they had actually collected 31. So that 1.8, if it was not on the insistence of the committee, there would not have been effort to show that it was even remitted further. So could there have been even further collections, more than the 1.8?
More than the 1.8.
You see, it breeds into
more. And
now,
more.
the Auditor General was certainly concerned with the figure that was indicated in their accounts. He went for verification of the 29 million, and he saw it. So he could not have raised the further queries over the excess. So that is the challenge with that figure. Where to place it? That's why actually even in your balance ledger you cannot find it. That's why in your cash equivalents you cannot provide for it. Yeah, because it is hanging. It is.
So is a really very
Chair, if you could allow me.
Honorable Chair, before he comes in, there are 2 dates here. On top there is 27th of August 2018, and then there is 2nd of July 2018. Which day do we take? On the receipt. On the receipt. Reported date 27th of August.
Chair.
Then received 2nd of July.
Chair, thank you very much for the discussions. I want to respond on the delay. Normally, we bank this money that we collect under NTR. So, on a weekly basis, we bank the money. And this just happened to be the end of the financial year. But ideally, we bank money every week in the account. This money was banked on a Thursday, which was towards the end of the financial year, and it got reflected in the consolidated fund on a Monday. So basically those were just 2 days, and the report...
Why did you bank it in Entebbe?
Soroti and Entebbe branch, standing.
I could give a response to that. This transfer form has to be signed by the signatories to the collection account to transfer money to the consolidated fund. During this time, towards the end of the financial year, there was a conference or a meeting of directors in Entebbe, and a director was a signatory. So we had to move to Entebbe to find the director in the meeting to sign the transfer form, and we deposit it in the Entebbe branch. That is why we had to transfer it from Entebbe branch, because it was coming to close of financial year and the director was out of station. That was the reason for that. Why we...
Wait a minute. You see?
Yes, please.
Was this money in cash?
Now, this money, when this money is collected cash by the collectors, they deposit it directly into the commercial bank account.
What was the importance of the director in the banking system? Because it was just a deposit.
Now, to know, this money was sitting in the commercial bank, Stanbic. It was on the commercial bank account. It was not cash. This transaction took place between a commercial bank account and a consolidated fund. It was not actual cash movement because this money had already been banked in the commercial bank.
Honorable Chair, Honorable Chair. Now he's taking us far, and he wants maybe to develop another argument. Now, for someone from Soroti to Entebbe, it means maybe there was an emergency. What was the what was the what was the emergency then that prompted you to use the, and I understand you could have used the government money which you had also accounted for, transport from Soroti to Entebbe to look for that very person. Now what was the emergency? If you can comfortably tell us that such and such money is still, at a certain date, was still in transit, but you did not wait for a moment to wait for that very person who had maybe gone for a workshop. What was the emergency then?
Honorable Member, the emergency here was to move money out of Stanbic account to consolidated fund before the close of the financial year, because we are required to transfer. So the emergency was we transferred the money before the close of the financial year, and because the director was not at station and would be back after the close of the financial year.
So was it an abrupt thing?
It wasn't abrupt because this money come in small collections as it is deposited in the commercial bank. And shortly before we had transferred. So in a short period, the small collections which get deposited in the commercial bank had accumulated to 1.8 towards the close of the financial year. So this money is collected in the 50s, in the 20s, and deposited in the commercial bank. As it is collected, it is deposited in the commercial bank. So we pick it from the commercial bank by means of a transfer form and remit it to the consolidated fund.
I don't know whether I'm failing to get you, but it's as if you are explaining something different.
Mr.
The
Chairman.
receipt shows the transfer. Not so?
Mm-hmm. Application for electronic funds
Yes.
transfer, EFT.
Transfer. But now he's explaining the corrections. I don't know whether I'm with him or I'm out.
Honorable Member, I think could you help me put that right?
And it is that.
Honorable Member, Honorable Chair, we do have an NTR account that sits in Stanbic. That NTR account is used by the private wing and all the other units that collect money within the hospital. They bank money in there. The NTR account is not an account for expenditure. It's just for collection. After collecting, we remit the money to the consolidated fund. From the consolidated fund, the money comes through TSA, through the account of the hospital, and that is how it's spent. So the money keeps coming in small amounts. Maybe a cesarean section is done, 200,000 is deposited. Maybe something happens. So the deposits are many, but at the end of the day, we transfer that money. We do an electronic fund transfer direct to the consolidated fund.
But are you also saying that we are now skipping the main issue? The issue is someone to board the taxi or whichever you use it to from Soroti. Like someone you've left in Soroti to come here looking for you for a certain transaction.
1.8. And that person could have used even more than 1%.
And I am sure in your books of accounts, you might have indicated the allowance that person used to come from Soroti, to find you here, to sign for just that very transaction.
Chairperson, I think Honorable Catherine is getting deep into understanding now the value of 1.8 when you have to transport somebody.
Because we need
Soroti
to know it.
with allowance, we don't maybe even. You see, that's why.
We need to know it, where it went exactly.
But that's the problem now, which is coming in. And the Chairperson, maybe if we were to conclude on this, you note that Parliament is concerned with the under-declaration of non-tax revenue. If you think you have declared, you have not shown evidence here that you have declared what you collected. 2, you don't recognize your transaction records of the movement of cash in this 1.8 you have not been able to explain it and prove it. And the 1.8 matches, we recognize it is receipted, it was received to the consolidated fund on your books of accounts. You cannot explain it by the receipts and the bank transfers. I believe that it's not easy to convince a bank to give you a fake stamp on government matters. So if we have doubt, we can still interrogate that further. But we want to believe this is correct. But again, this results into suspicious behavior that brings doubt by Parliament on what you are doing because of failing to do the right thing. So the whole thing is the suspicion around whatever you have been doing. And when we know non-tax revenue is highly abused, that even sometimes they are not declared, sometimes they are just left out like that, and there is no record, they are not captured anywhere. And those are the issues that are recognized by Public Finance Management Act that we have to deal with it, in addition to not remitting in time. I think you now get issues that we are concerned with, about 5 of them, and they are matters of facts. They are in our law books, which you have not done. Much as we can give you benefit of doubt that this amount of money reached the consolidated fund, somebody was saying, how do you spend so much in trying to deliver the 1.8? That's another matter. So, Chairperson, I think with those issues at hand, Soroti Regional Referral Hospital now knows their position as per the law, not as per committee, but that's our responsibility to put it to you. Thank you.
So, honorable members, I think let's proceed. The next one we stay this on.